This is Hops and Spirits Bar Conversations. Come for the craft beer, bourbon, whiskey, and great drinks. Stay for the conversations. Here's your host, Jonathan Green.
Welcome to another edition of Bar Conversations. It's a fun one this week. No tasting notes, though, because we got a flight night. We just kind of want to get right into all the good drinks that we've got. We're talking with Dragon's Milk, New Holland Brewing, doing a little bit of beer and barrel-aged at that. It's a fun one. Don't forget to check out our past episodes. Go to hopspirits.com for all of that. And if you haven't yet, check out our Q&A video cast as well. A lot of cool interviews there, mainly all in the beer, bourbon, alcohol space. You know, we talk tequila, you name it. We talk about it if it involves alcohol. So check that out if you can, and enjoy the show.
Remember to check out Hops and Spirits on social media at Hop Spirits, all one word, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also find Hops and Spirits on YouTube and at hopspirits.com.
Welcome into another edition of the Bar Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Green. It's another flight night. This one's a fun one. It's a kind of what I would call a combo of the two. Normally it's a lot of bourbon. The crew here is kind of who you always see on the bourbon flight nights, but it's going to be a little bit more, I don't want to call it hoppy side because that's not exactly the beers we'll be drinking, but these will be barrel aged beers and maybe some beer barrel bourbon as well. We're here with Dragon's Milk. But first, let me introduce you to the crew. We have once again with us Jeff the Rabbit, but his name's actually Chris. Welcome in, Chris.
Hey, how's it going?
We also have with us Ariella, better known as Influenski on Instagram.
Hey, y'all. How are you?
And filling in for D this week because he's not a big beer guy. I figured I'd get a beer guy who also enjoys bourbon. Seth, who you've seen on a few flight nights and also on One Sip Beer Review. Seth, welcome in.
Hey, y'all.
And then our main guest is Dominique Bergquist, the brand manager for Dragon's Milk. Did I say that correct, Dominique?
Crushed it.
See, you put me on the spot, Chris, and I finally got one right. So
touche, not bad.
But we're here to talk a little bit about three different beers and then a beer barrel bourbon. So first up, Dominique, we have the Dragon's Milk White, because we're kind of gonna go maybe from the lighter side to the more potent side, I guess we could call it, because this one only clocks in at what, 6%?
That's right.
So can you tell us a little bit about the Dragon's Milk White and how it came to be? Because it's not the original, correct?
Right. Yeah, we're kind of going in order of probably proper tasting, but not necessarily in chronological order in terms of what came first. But so Dragon's Milk White was the first real kind of spin-off of Dragon's Milk. It's just was really meant to be a little bit more accessible to people. I mean, granted, I think every day is a great day for a bourbon barrel aged stout. 11%. I mean, that just kicks the day off right for me. But I realize that's not the average, folks. But so yeah, Dragon's Milk White was just kind of reimagining what a barrel aged stout could be. What even just down to its appearance. I mean, I've got it in the glass now, and it's really got this really beautiful golden hue, almost leaning a little amber for me. And that's mostly coming from the barrel. Goes in there pretty light colored. We brew it with chocolate, coffee, and vanilla. And really what that's trying to do is mimic those kind of classic stout flavor notes, but without giving it the dark tones that you get from the roasted malt. So it's really brewed very similarly to a stout without that roasted malt component.
Yeah, I'm guessing you guys chose I guess, how did you come up with the name White for it?
It was super creative because it's a white stout. Yeah, I mean, just trying to hit the nail on the head there and hammer the point home, try to make it really, really clear. I mean, people just generally associate Dragon's Milk with dark and kind of brooding and heavy, and so Dragon's Milk White was really kind of meant to be essentially just it's the opposite of it, but still sitting in the family with those indulgent flavor notes, still going into bourbon barrels. This is aged for about 30 days in barrels, where the original Dragon's Milk, which we'll try in a little bit, was aged for 90 days.
Yeah, you definitely get the coffee notes. I mean, that's like right on the palate right off the bat for me. Which, and I'll be honest, I'm not a big coffee fan, but I don't mind this as much. This is like my wife's favorite one that y'all have done.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Yeah, the coffee to me jumps right out of the glass. I mean, that's definitely dominant. I kind of get more chocolate on maybe the back of your palate and kind of finishing with a little bit of vanilla there. But yeah, coffee's for me is kind of the key flavor note going through it.
Chris, I'm curious to think someone that does not drink beer and you told me beforehand, you're not sure the last time you had a beer. What do you think?
I honestly couldn't tell you.
It's not bourbon though, right?
No, for one, yes, it is not bourbon, but two, it's better than I thought it was going to be. I'm not going to lie. I didn't think I was going to like it, but the coffee is definitely there. I actually get a little bit of kind of sweetness out of it. It's very light, easy to drink, you know.
Yeah, hey, I saw you drinking one earlier, watching a little racing. I'm guessing you've enjoyed this one.
I like this one. I like Chris. I don't remember the last time I was drinking beer, truthfully. I had an IPA here or two in the summer with the burger, but this is something I could drink in the summer just because I think, Dominic, you mentioned this is kind of, the opposite of Dragon's Milk. I remember one of those nights, Dragon's Milk was that, and then you drink 3 or 4 and you're like, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah, for sure.
But this kind of reminds you of that kind of classic profile of like Dragon's Milk Stout. It's like really good, 6%. I'm like, perfect.
Seth, you're quiet up there in the corner.
Yeah, I've actually never had this one, but I don't remember who said it. It's like it's super accessible. Like it's not that big, huge, but definitely the coffee and chocolate. I think it's delicious.
Now, Dominique, you talked a little bit beforehand about how this is a very kind of one of the offshoots of the original. Did you guys set out to make like an offshoot? Is that, or did this kind of become, what was the process, I guess, in making another version of a Dragon's Milk?
Yeah, I mean, we have a very interesting portfolio at New Holland, and even just kind of stemming from our distribution footprint. Our main focus nationally, we're distributed in, it's like, depending on the day, it's like 47 states. Most of the states that have people in them, we have beer in now. But Dragon's Milk really is that lead. And we've kind of found over the years that I used to be the events manager at New Holland, and you go to these beer festivals and you go to the bar afterwards and like, oh, I work for New Holland, and like, okay, like, but all right, cool. It's like, oh, I work, we make Dragon's Milk. Oh, it's my favorite beer. Like, I love that beer. It's like, and they just don't necessarily have the connection the farther away you get from Michigan with New Holland. And as we want to kind of build out more of a portfolio that can play on a national level, it can play a little bit stronger away from home. We really felt like maximizing the potential of Dragon's Milk is going to be the smartest way to do that. And this beer started out as a pub beer for us. Our lead innovation brewer, John, kind of came up with had heard about white stouts, and had tasted a few over the years and wanted to try it himself. And we put our unique spin on it and doing the bourbon barrel aging, and just kind of felt like, this really works as kind of a natural evolution for the brand. We don't necessarily want to put everything underneath the Dragon's Milk portfolio, because New Holland, what we call the windmill brands, everything that's got a windmill on it, I mean, that's really more of like a playful space. That's where we do our fruited sours and IPAs and then lagers. Those just don't necessarily fit into the ethos of Dragon's Milk, but we did feel like Dragon's Milk White did that for us, and like I said, and like we talked about earlier, just a more accessible option, just kind of an easier jump for people to get to the original versus kind of going from 0 to 100.
Yeah, no, I get that. And then you mentioned it too. Was it just that once you got outside of Michigan that people didn't realize New Holland and Dragon's Milk were the same thing? Is that why you then basically created its own brand? I mean, because it's got its own website, social media, everything.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And for the most part, when we distribute beer to California or to Texas, I mean, it's pretty much just Dragon's Milk. And so we're also, I mean, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in that regard, where people don't necessarily associate New Holland with Dragon's Milk, but that's also the only beer they've ever had from us is Dragon's Milk. So yeah, it kind of goes hand in hand with each other in terms of building that out and playing to its strengths. And if all you've ever heard of is Dragon's Milk, we just want to be able to create a world where you can kind of interact with that on an everyday basis. That's why we have the social handles and the website.
So Chris, did you go back for another drink? Or you pausing yourself?
No, I've had a couple sips already. I like it. I definitely think, as somebody who doesn't drink beer or doesn't drink beer often, this would be something to get me maybe back into beer, kind of like an introductory back into beer. So it's good. It's good. I'm almost like, I don't want to say, like, I'm hesitant to say that, like, but it's, I didn't think I was going to like it, man, but it's good.
I was gonna say, just wait till we try some more, because I think the rest will be a little more even further in your wheelhouse. So let's talk about the original guy, the Dragon's Milk, the main, the main star of the show, I guess.
Absolutely. So yeah, if you don't like beer, so when we're at beer festivals, that's kind of the line that we'll use. It's like, well, what, like, I don't like beer. Like, what do you got? It's like, well, you're probably at the wrong place to begin with, but you're at a beer festival, but we've got something for everybody, and Dragon's Milk is what we steer people towards. Because if you think that you don't like beer, you're probably thinking of a light lager. You're probably thinking maybe of an IPA, and Dragon's Milk has a ton of flavor notes that have a surprisingly wide appeal. There is like we talked about earlier, that coffee, chocolate, vanilla, but there's a lot of characteristics that I think you'll find in red wine. The bourbon punch really comes through in this beer, as opposed to being much more subtle in Dragon's Milk White. So we in terms of who's drinking this beer, I mean, we find a lot of wine drinkers, a lot of spirit drinkers, and of course craft beer people as well.
I like this one. I've been drinking this for a while. I remember this beer very vividly and fondly, I think is a better word for it.
I was gonna say, coming in at 11% to remember it, because if you have a few of these, you could be in trouble.
Because it's so good, you just want more.
Yeah, it's
man.
It's nice and smooth on the front, and it's got that nice little bite on the back. It's really nice.
Yeah.
So
Is it the same mash as the white, Dominique?
No,
or is it
nope.
different mash?
Yeah, totally different. Yep, totally different.
Okay.
So how did y'all come up with Dragon's Milk when it first started? Like, how did this thing happen?
Yeah, I think a lot has been lost to legend and lore over the last 20 years. But the story goes that it was really just kind of an experiment that our owner and brewer at the time, Brett Vanderkamp, put forth. He had heard from his uncles about some guys along the coast of Lake Michigan that were aging some of their hard cider in bourbon barrels, and wanted to see what he could do in terms of beer. And yeah, it kind of started off as a single barrel experiment, really brewed the beer for the barrel. A lot of times you'll see, stouts exist as a non-barrel aged version, and then maybe as a specialty offering, you'll see them go into a barrel. And I tell this to anybody, and Dragon's Milk pre-barrel is not good. It's not. It's kind of weird. It's got a lot of like green apple flavor to it, and it's interesting. It's very young, but over the course of 3 months, I mean, really transforms in the barrel, and just it's a perfect marriage in terms of interacting with the wood and pulling out those vanillins in there. And yeah, it started out, like I said, it's just a single barrel release, and then it kind of became something that they did twice a year, and then they were doing it quarterly, and realized over time, I think what makes Dragon's Milk really unique is that we offer it year round. There is a place for it in your fridge. maybe once a week or to share with friends or just to unwind with. But it didn't necessarily need to be something that we kind of kept behind closed doors and made exclusive. It was something that we could invest and put the time in, and we've got, I don't know the number anymore, but it's thousands and thousands of bourbon casks holding Dragon's Milk now, and that's probably, gosh, it's probably 65% of our volume nowadays is Dragon's Milk.
And Chris, what do you think of this one? Because it's totally different than the Dragon's Milk White.
It's completely different. I'm not gonna. I don't like it as much as the white. I think I like the white a little bit better. I kind of like the coffee and the white a little bit better, the tasting. And I don't know, not that this one's bad, but I don't know. Maybe I need to go back to it again. But it's definitely a little bit heavier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the color difference definitely surprised me. You know, just looking at the two.
Oh yeah.
And then the name Dragon's Milk. What does that stand for?
Yeah, and that's another one. I it was during the pandemic. I just had some downtime, surprisingly. And I actually emailed some, like, the librarian at Oxford College, and I was just like trying to dig it up, because it's like, where did this come from? Like, our owner didn't really know, and like, just, I don't want to say it came to him in a dream by any means, but there's just no like real great backstory behind it. And what I wound up finding is that, like, as early as the 1500s, as far back as they could find like written record of it, it was kind of used to describe like strong ales, like magical elixirs, kind of stuff like that. And it kind of pops up throughout history as being kind of going in and out of fashion of being used up until like the 1800s, and then it kind of disappears. And whatever happened between then and the year 2000, I don't really know, but that's where we take its name. So we like to say that we're kind of the proud stewards of that name at this time, kind of carrying on the tradition of Dragon's Milk.
Well, I'll say this: I really enjoyed this one more than the white, just because obviously I'm not a big coffee lover. So, but this has got just so much flavor, and I do find it very interesting that you said you guys don't make this. It's not a barrel aged version of something else, because I feel like not all the time, but a lot of the time that is what happens. It's a special release for something.
Right. Yeah. And it just kind of goes back to that original intent of marrying the flavors and being super intentional about the process of crafting this beer. And it's not, to the point earlier, I mean, it's very easy to drink. It's kind of surprisingly easy in my opinion. It's almost light bodied. It's full, but it's very just smooth and easy to put down, and you kind of get lost in, you drink one and you got two. It's like, oh, okay, maybe time for a water. But,
Okay.
but yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that it's accessible. You can find it. A few of my buddies have a dark beer night 2 or 3 times every winter, and this is a mainstay because, like you said, you can get it. Right. It's not one of those things that you have to kind of fight over. It's really good.
I think that's what I like. You could find it. It's accessible, and the brand itself. It's Dragon's Milk. I think I'd like that rather than some of the craft ones that, as a bourbon drinkers, going into those like aisles where they're just like a bunch of like different labels. I got very overwhelmed. So if I know what I like at the bourbon, like the beer aisle, like I actually would probably pick this up if I want like a stout.
Awesome. Yeah, and I mean, we were really intentional with our packaging there too. I mean, the dragon is not subtle on that 4-pack or on that bottle, but it does kind of cut through some of that clutter in the beer set for sure.
Yep.
Well, and then you do special releases of this, and you do kind of what your reserve series is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess I was kind of telling a half truth when we started that Dragon's Milk White was the first variant of Dragon's Milk. We're really truly the first variant. We're the Dragon's Milk Reserve series. Do you want to move on to that one?
Sure, I'm already drinking mine.
Perfect. I'm gonna pour some of mine out right now. But yeah, we've been doing this for, gosh, probably 10 years at least. And we do three or four different variants every year. We've done some beer festivals in Michigan where we'll fill up every tap and have 25 of them and let our brewers go crazy. But really just trying to find different flavors and ingredients that highlight the best of Dragon's Milk and maybe take it in a crazy different direction. The one we're drinking now is salted caramel. That is one that we've done in the past, maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, but just kind of always whenever we release one, it's like, look at this awesome new reserve we're doing, like bring back salted caramel. And it's like, all right, like let's do this. So it's definitely a fan favorite and a favorite in the brewery.
Wow, that is dessert in a cup.
Mm-hmm.
Dessert in a glass.
Yeah,
I was not expecting that at all. It doesn't have that bite at the end. It's very smooth even at the end.
Yeah, the caramel comes through big time, sure. And this is delicious.
Yeah. The coffee bitters is like throughout though. Like there's that bitterness that like marries well with the caramel.
It is very sweet. We use 4 different kinds of caramel in that. Dessert in a glass. It's a great way to put it. Absolutely. And it's just one of those fun ones that we do. You know, this is the 3rd one in the series for this year. We kind of followed. This one was preceded by we did a double bourbon barrel with 2 different kinds of vanilla beans, and then we did a peanut butter and cocoa nibs as well. So just going really really heavy and going in the sweet direction, which is kind of fun. And yeah, you still get the classic, I think, pieces of Dragon's Milk, but just in a totally unique and fun different way.
How do you
I've never tasted anything like that for sure. I was not expecting that.
So where are we at here on the ranking right now, Chris?
So I think if I had to drink one daily, it'd be the white.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I was having a couple buddies over and an occasion, it'd probably be the regular Dragon's Milk. And then after dinner, I'm not going to eat cake. I'm just going to have one of those, the salted caramels.
There you go.
Yeah,
I like that. How do you keep people excited for multiple releases?
It's, honestly, it's kind of taken on a life of its own. People just, those are our best performing social media posts. We do an online pre-order at our brewery for pickup, and every 4 months it's like there's a couple hundred cars that show up and want to get it first. And I think we've just built a reputation around building really quality beers over the last 25 years. And I think that's probably what starts, where everything starts for us is that perception of quality, accessibility. And then when we do something limited, you're going to get your money's worth in terms of a great beer.
And I guess my other question is too, it's kind of like the chicken and the egg because of what you guys do now. So what comes first, the beer or the bourbon, or is the barrel somehow just weirdly in there somewhere? Like how does this work these days?
Yeah, we get a lot of life out of our bourbon barrels, to say the least. And we are a distillery as well, which is pretty unique amidst the craft beer scene. And so we source all of our, for Dragon's Milk, we source all of our barrels from Kentucky. We use a Calvin cooperage, so we're getting kind of just from any big distillery that you can think of. That's what we're getting, and using that blend. And so Dragon's Milk itself is a blend of first use and what we call second use bourbon barrels. So first use has only ever held bourbon. Second use, and that really kind of, again, is really a flavor driven as much as it is economics. But first use is going to come out really hot. A lot of just a big bourbon punch. Almost, it's good, but it's just a little too intense, I think, for the average person. And so then we'll use second use barrels, which have seen dragon smoke once before. And that's kind of the salt and pepper. Like you're getting a little bit more of that, just like kind of oak, of the oakiness, not necessarily the vanillins. A little bit more tamer of a container, so to speak. And then after that, so we'll kind of set aside those second use barrels, and that's where beer barrel bourbon comes in. So we've been doing this for probably 10 or 15 years now. I believe we were actually the first to do bourbon in a beer cask. We kind of preceded Jameson by a couple of years. And yeah, this is a 2 to 4 year bourbon that then spends around 3 months in dragon smoke casks. And we bottle it at 80 proof. We do some single barrels and store picks at 100 proof, which are awesome. But just the everyday beer barrel bourbon is at 80. It's very soft. It's super easy to drink. What we find that the beer barrel does is really kind of it's those dark malts that are so present in the beer that get transferred over to the bourbon. So it's really chocolatey. The bourbon itself has kind of a high barley content as well. So it's just a very, I hate to use the word smooth, but I mean, it kind of is what it is, right? I mean, it's very easy to drink, especially at the lower proof.
And you're saying it's high in barley in terms of mash bill?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's a I don't know, I should know the exact percentages, but it's in the 20s for barley. And that's kind of an ode to our beer.
Yeah. Wow, the nose is very interesting. I don't know if you guys smelled it. It's like very interesting.
It's very sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like something like tart.
And I was going to say, you perfectly segued into the beer barrel bourbon. So thank you, Dominique.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Wow.
Yeah, it's sweet going down, but super easy to drink.
There's like bitterness to it too, though, that you don't get usually. Very like green tartness, but not like
Definitely.
Yeah. I was gonna say hoppy, but like I don't know if it's like weird. This is interesting. I don't think I've ever tasted or know something like this before as a bourbon. Is a beer barrel? Wow.
Yeah, and how long is it in the beer barrels?
90 days. Yeah,
but
right
it's
around
also,
3 months.
And now this is stuff you all make, correct?
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So we distill
2 to
all of our own.
4 years, right?
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
Chris, this is more your wheelhouse.
For it being 80,
Chris.
for it being 80 proof, I didn't expect it to have as much flavor as it does.
Same.
I thought it was gonna be kind of flat, but it's definitely. I like that the bitterness on the back end isn't too much. It's subtle. It's just enough to go with the sweetness, but.
Yeah, I like to try the cash strength of this actually. It has like nice legs. I was like swirling it.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see that cash strength.
Yeah, like really nice legs on the glass.
For sure.
For 2 to 4 years, you said, Dominique?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Touche.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when those two are saying that at 2 to 4, they have a very experienced palate. That's good things, Dominic, not bad things.
Good. No,
Yeah.
no, for sure.
Good thing.
No, we appreciate it. Yeah, we'll have to definitely get you some of that cast strength. I think we might be offering that next year, at least for some of our store picks. So we're super excited for that.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, aren't you guys releasing a 10-year single malt soon? Is that right? I thought I saw something about that.
Yeah, and I just work on the beer side for the most part, or mostly anything that has a dragon on it. But we do really have that whole that distilling program is really pretty robust. I mean, we do bourbon, we do single malt, we do rum and vodka and gin. Our gin was one of the top gins in the world a couple of years ago. So we've definitely got some history there, but that single malt is pretty fantastic. It's a 10-year, as you said. It's finished in sherry casks for a couple of months. It's fantastic. That's going to be releasing soon. I think in probably by the end of this month. As of 3 days ago, they were labeling it, so I can't imagine it'll sit around for too long. But yeah, we're pumped about that. That'll be pretty limited. I think it might actually just be, just in our brew pubs and our spirits tasting rooms. But yeah, it's kind of a rare space for craft distilleries to be able to get 10 years out of their own juice. We're excited about it.
Nice. Well, if you happen to lose a bottle by chance, it's quite all right. We won't be mad at you.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, we'll get Will on the sample train for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
There we go.
All right, so I just want to open this up because for me, I'm a beer guy first, bourbon second. Although bourbon has quickly caught up, and barrel aged beers have become a big favorite of mine. The stouts are good, like the salted caramel was absolutely delicious. It's a dessert in a glass. You could drink that. Well, I don't want to say all night. You might go into diabetic shock by the end. But that's great. And here in Lexington, where I live, Seth lives, they do a lot of the lighter ales, strawberry ales and bourbon barrels, things like that. And I've really loved that. But also, we got some bourbon drinkers here. So what are you guys thinking? What do you want to ask? Put you on the spot after you put me on the spot, Chris, about saying names and all sorts of things.
Touche, man. So what other? So I know we tried the salted caramel reserve. So do you have like other reserve flavors out right now?
Yeah, we hope that they're mostly gone by the time another one comes around. But just the way that distribution works, they'll linger and that kind of stuff. But yeah, we did a double bourbon barrel version in June, and for that one we aged so that one we kind of leaned into the first use barrels. So we did the entire batch in first use bourbon barrels, threw Madagascar vanilla beans in there, and then we took everything out of barrels, put it in a steel tank, and then filled it, and then put that beer back into another set of first use barrels. So the ABV on Dragon's Milk usually is 11%. This one came in at it was like 12.3, I think, maybe even a little higher than that. And when we put it back in barrels, we did another set of vanilla. So just kind of like building upon those layers of flavor, very complex for just using, a single ingredient, so to speak. But that one is really exciting. And then the first one this year, we did peanut butter and cocoa nibs. So, I mean, it was an absolute mess in the brewery. They hated us for asking them to make that one. They went all out. I mean, there was peanut butter, there was peanut butter powder. It was insane. But it was super good. I mean, they really nailed the peanut butter flavor on that. And the cocoa nibs kind of provided certainly the chocolate, but just enough of a nice kind of bittering backbone to make it something you could drink 12 ounces of. But we've done, in the past, I mean, there's been oatmeal cookie and mocha mint and coconut rum. I mean, if you can think of a flavor combination, we've probably gotten pretty close to it in the past.
All right, that's awesome.
Those reserves, do they get released, everywhere, or do they even make it out of Michigan?
They do, yeah. It's really limited, and we're actually working really hard to expand that availability and that distribution. Places like Michigan, by default probably gets the most of it, but I mean, you can get it in California. You can get it in Kentucky. It's but just in limited quantities. And if you are trying to hunt those down, honestly, the best way to go is to take a look at our beer finder. on dragonsmilk.com. And if you see a liquor store that has gotten the reserves in the past, that's probably a good indication of where you're going to get it again.
Cool. Yeah, this one's definitely going to make an appearance at our next dark beer night for sure.
Right on.
Hey, anything?
I'm not much of a beer drinker. Just a question from a newbie, I guess. Is there a shelf life? Because I see in this bottle some like timestamp. Is it more like 6 months to 12 months? And is there really a difference between fresh off the, not like a still, I guess it's not a distilled spirit, the mash and I guess putting it in a bottle, the difference in terms of taste?
Yeah, absolutely. And it differs by beer style. I mean, for an IPA, the shelf life is much shorter than it is for Dragon's Milk. You want to get those hop characteristics like as fresh as you possibly can. I mean, it's not, and the thing is, beer never necessarily goes bad. It just isn't as good as it once was. And IPA is definitely a little bit more of a fickle style in terms of timeline. For Dragon's Milk, we recommend a year shelf life. The date on our cans and our bottles, that's the kind of the born on date, the bottled on date. So as long as you're getting in a year, and we feel really good about it. After, and you can certainly age that product as well. It just kind of ebbs and flows, depending on how it's taking on oxidation. The dissolved oxygen in the bottle is very low to begin with, but it is there. Depending on how you store it and all that kind of, if it's sitting in your hot garage and cold winters, like it's going to be a lot different than if it was just in a cellar in your basement. But we kind of always say with our products, we especially with Dragon's Milk, we've done the aging for you. You don't need to age it. Drink it as fresh as you can. This is when our brewers and our cellarmen, they physically literally taste every single barrel that goes through and passes our QC. So it's like, it's good to go now. Drink it when you can. I would always recommend drinking beer at kind of peak freshness. After that, it's like I said, never goes bad, just not as good as we thought it was going to be.
I like that question, because I feel there, especially with like those special releases, I feel like people like to hold on to those for a while, kind of, and Chris and A will get this too, even Seth, about the verticals almost to a degree. They want the all three, maybe a couple years later, and then they'll crack them open. And because I know, like, I think a Goose Island and their Bourbon County releases, that's a big thing to hold on to those for a few years. So I guess though for y'all, it's like, no, we did it. It's good now.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. And who knows what it's going to be like, in 5 years from now. We put real peanut butter in that beer. Like, drink it now. Well, there's salt, there's caramel in there. Drink it now. We have a kind of a fun tradition in our office where we will go into liquor stores and buy like the oldest 22-ounce bombers that we can possibly find at a liquor store, and we'll share them just because we're, I think, gluttons for punishment. But it's like, those beers were awesome, 5 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. They were great, and it's just they were meant to be drank then. It's not necessarily something that you want to hold on to, especially if you go out hunting and you pay a lot of money for those special releases. Enjoy it now would be my recommendation always.
Jonathan, we did that vertical of Bourbon County Stout for, I think it was back to 2015 last winter, and it was not good at all.
So what you're saying is they lost the freshness by the end.
Oh yeah, but you're exactly right. You feel like you want the verticals. You want to try 3 or 4 years in a row. And Dominique, I'll take your advice from now on. I don't know.
Sure.
And Dominique, like you have the Dragon's Milk White, you have the Dragon's Milk, the Reserve. I know you weirdly went into the Dragon's Share Seltzer. how do you ever do you see you guys expanding the line at any point? Like, with a salted caramel, if it keeps getting brought up every day, how do you guys ever figure out when to truly expand and offer something else year round?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's a lot of. I mean, it's a boring answer, but I mean, it is. It's looking at data. It's looking at what consumers are asking for. But it's also, we're really proud of our innovation department as well, which is mostly led now by our founder and our innovation brewer John Bohr. And it's like, hey, we found this thing. I think this is really good, and no one else is doing it. Like there was no data on a bourbon barrel seltzer. There at the time, on the windmill side of things, there really wasn't a ton of stuff going on with New England IPAs when Tangerine Space Machine came out. It's like I think we got to do this. And so it's a little bit, it's a little bit of it's a science and an art at the same time. And then for Dragon's Milk, it's really kind of making sure that it falls within the parameters that we set for the brand, and for the most part, it's got to be aged in oak in some way or shape or form, and then it's got to deliver on flavor as well. And for Dragon Share, that is a crazy experiment that we're excited about and happy with how things are going with that brand. But it just that kind of came about of asking the same questions that Brett did when we first brewed Dragon's Milk 20 years ago. Bourbon barrel aged stouts or bourbon barrel beers really were not a thing, certainly not to any sort of scale. And with seltzer, it's like, okay, this is where we are now, but how do we introduce more complexity to it? How do we bring something to the table that isn't being done anywhere else? And by taking aging water essentially in those barrels, we're able to extract a lot of flavor the same way that you would with any liquid in a barrel, and makes for in my opinion, a very interesting drinking experience, and one that's super accessible. I'm a huge bourbon guy as well, and while I do find myself drinking it quite often, it's not necessarily something you want to have all day every day, and I'm able to kind of get the flavor notes of bourbon in a way that I think even vodka soda drinkers do with their High Noons or even White Claws, and just an easy accessible product that's aged in bourbon barrels, and so that's why we use the Dragon name there.
All right, and before we wrap up, any final questions from everyone else?
Nope.
All right, Chris, what are you ever going to drink beer again?
Yes, I will definitely go back to beer. I am opening the door. The door was closed, it's unlocked, and now we're opening the door.
Like this much, like that much. Are you going to go back to some Dragon's Milk a little more often, maybe?
Yeah, I think so. Dragon's Milk is kind of my stout to go to, I think, before. But truthfully, I'm really interested in the kind of bourbon that I smelled today and drank. It's very interesting. So it'll be interesting to see what you guys are coming out as well on the next future releases. That'll be kind of cool to see.
Yeah, and before I get to Seth, because Seth doesn't count right now. No, just kidding. But Dominique, I mean, you guys to some degree have been talking to a lot of people lately, thinking about this a lot. Like my generation that grew up beer drinkers, craft beer drinkers, have now kind of gone into the bourbon space, and you're now seeing a lot of places that used to do like wine cask finishes doing a beer barrel finish. Like they'll partner with someone, put a blonde ale in it and then get it back, put their stuff back in it. I mean, you guys were kind of the first ones on that, weren't you? I mean, doing it, especially on the scale y'all were doing it.
Yeah. I think it's pretty safe to say that we were probably pretty ahead of the curve, to be honest. At least on the beer barrel finishing. It's fun to it's a testament to just the company culture that we have at New Holland and the people that work on this brand. I mean, they're just a legion of innovators. I mean, they're always kind of thinking outside the box, and there's as many things as you see on the shelf. There are just failed experiments where it's like, we shouldn't have done that. That was gross. But we're super excited about Beer Barrel Bourbon, about Dragon's Milk, and kind of how we can continue to mine a great brand and keep giving people interesting expressions off of it.
All right, Seth, you can go now. I'm sorry.
It's fine. I don't matter. But like I said, the reserve is definitely something that's going to make a splash at the beer night or dark beer night. The next one we have, but I'm with A on the Beer Barrel Bourbon. It's really good. It's actually the first bourbon I've had finished in beer barrels. And I want to try a few more now to see if that's what it is. It's really, really tasty.
Because you were talking about, you got some interesting notes off of that. And
I do.
I'm just curious I'm wondering if that's because that beer brings a different life to that barrel.
I think so. I mean, this is like very interesting notes. Like the nose on this, it's like very fruity, floral, like that green tart. Like I cannot like find the right word for it, but it's very interesting. Even the palate is kind of has that beer bitterness, but if it's finished in like the beer, like I was wondering what kind of beer, because I get the hops, like that bitterness from it, and I'm like, it's kind of interesting, and it has a really nice leg for an 80 proof. So it would be interesting to try the cask strength, truthfully, and see kind of where that profile comes from. But it already has nice, beautiful like viscosity on the glass. So it would be cool to see and try.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying wink, wink. It'd be cool to try.
We'll see what we can happen. We'll talk off show.
Yeah, definitely.
but Dominic, what for the beer barrel? You said you guys, which barrels do you use for that typically?
Those are all Dragon's Milk.
Wow.
Yep. So it sits
insane.
in so 2 to 4 years in just new American white oak, and then after that it gets that Dragon's Milk barrel.
And
finish.
Is that because you talked about you have like the first one and a second one, and you kind of blend those for Dragon's Milk. Is this kind of like the third thing that hits them again? Is this?
Yep, absolutely.
Interesting. Yeah, I would love to see what happens. And now, do you guys ever use the beer or the bourbon barrels that you all use for this for anything else?
It's not really for beer. There's been mostly for innovation experiments, if it goes that far, but we have an on-site wood shop that does all of the anything from furniture to tap handles to decorations in our brew pubs, and we break down we recycle a ton of those barrels through our cooperage, but a good percentage of that goes over to the wood shop and gets broken down and turned into cool new items and stuff like that.
Is there anything y'all don't do up there?
No, there is.
Michigan.
Yeah. Oh man, we definitely span the gamut for sure. I mean, we like distillery, brewery. We make kombucha. I mean, it is. I mean, if you name it, we probably got it.
Are you gonna do a Dragon's Milk kombucha?
Not as long as I'm around.
So to wrap it all up, what's next for the Dragon's Milk brand? Because obviously New Holland, that's the craft beer label. I love the Ichabod pumpkin ale. I love a lot of the things the quote unquote windmill brands do. What's next for Dragon's Milk, and what can we see maybe in 2022 and beyond?
Yeah, we've got some things I really can't talk about, but I'm really stoked about. Can you give
us a good tease?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've got three new Dragon's Milk reserves that are going to be coming out. An old favorite will be returning. We've got some really, really fun stuff on the bourbon side too. We released last year actually a bottled and bond product underneath the Dragon's Milk name. And that was 4 years. We've done a 5-year expression of that. We will also be doing a 6-year of that, hopefully by the end of this year. Just in our brew pubs, but really excited about that. No beer barrel finish. To the earlier question or the comment, like the beer barrel absolutely changes that flavor profile pretty significantly. And it's fun to compare and contrast those. But yeah, I would just say, follow Dragon's Milk on Instagram, and there's a lot of news coming, in the next couple of months. So yeah, we're pumped.
Well, I love to hear that. I can't wait to see what's next. I've had a little bit of everything. I've had the Dragon Share seltzer. It's wildly different for a seltzer than anything I've ever had before. Chris, I might send you some. Just I feel like you have to have your first seltzer.
Why not?
But Dominique, thank you so much. Chris, Seth, this has been a very fun night. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
John.
you.